What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and it's time to give you another game preview / game prediction for the 2023 college football season. And in this video, we're going to give you the game preview / game prediction for Week 1's matchup between the Colorado Buffaloes and the TCU Horned Frogs. Both of these teams met last year. And final score of that game last year, TCU defeated Colorado at their home turf 38-13. So this is a rematch from last year. Should be a pretty good game this upcoming season. Of course, we know that Colorado's got Deion Sanders coming over as the head coach and everything. TCU, though, they made a lot of, progress from last year. Of course, going to the college football playoff. So there's a lot of storylines going into this game. Colorado with a new head coach, and obviously with new guys. I mean, new guys all over the roster. Transfers coming in. Obviously, they only have 3 returning players from last year's team back because they lost so much from the transfer portal. But they brought in them transfers coming in this year. And then for TCU, again, they are going to be pretty hyped up for this season. Of course, they made the playoff last year, but this could be a step-back year for them. So, again, we're going to give you a game preview of this one. We're going to give you pretty much the stats for both teams from last year. And then we'll also give you the game summary of what time the game is and who is the favorite going into this game. And also, we're going to give you keys to the game here for both of these teams. That's what we've been doing in the first 2 game preview and predictions and everything. But let's get right into it here with the Colorado versus TCU matchup here. Again, this is a Week 1 matchup here on the weekend, and we'll start here with the stats comparison between these two teams. You look at the stats for Colorado last year. They went 1-11 last year. They only averaged 15.4 points per game last year. So, yeah, you can tell Colorado's offense was not really good last year. This was probably one of the worst offenses in the country last year, and probably in the Pac-12 as, in the conference as well. You look at the total yards per game, 281.3 yards per game in total yards last year. Passing yards per game, 172.9 yards per passing. Colorado just didn't have that quarterback that really can throw over a 300-yard mark or over the 200-yard mark last year. Maybe this year they can have that kind of quarterback this season, but the rushing game, it wasn't really good as well. 108.3 yards per rushing last year for this Colorado team. So, yeah, Colorado was just not really explosive on the offensive side of the football, and that offensive ranking tells a story. They were 128th last year in the offensive ranking, and then they were 130th on defense. I mean, they were close to being one of the worst defenses in the country last year, really close to being the worst team also in the country. They probably were the worst team in the country, but maybe not as worse, as Northwestern was as well, but again, Colorado coming off a very, very terrible season last year. But that record could change. I could see them winning more than one game this year and probably averaging more points this year as well. But again, they're going to have a new roster, so we'll figure out what this team looks like in the first few weeks. You look at TCU stats, again, coming off that 13-2 season. They went undefeated, in the regular season. Of course, they lost to Kansas State in the Big 12 championship. They beat Michigan, though, in the semifinal matchup, but then they got beat in the national championship game, got blown out in that game like 65-7 against the Georgia Bulldogs. You look at the points per game last year. This was a pretty explosive offense. They averaged like 38.8 points per game last year. You look at the total yards, they averaged about 455 total yards per game last year. You could tell how explosive this offense pretty was for, this TCU team last year. And then you look at the passing yards, 261.7 yards per passing. Of course, Max Duggan, he's now gone into the NFL, but he did some really good things for this TCU team, became a Heisman candidate. So you could tell that passing yard number was really good for them last year. And then you look at the running game. This team was pretty good at running the football at times. They had ups and downs, but they averaged about 193.3 yards on the ground. And then, of course, the offense and defensive rankings. Offensively, they were 27th in the country last year, so this was a pretty explosive offense. And defensively, though, they weren't just not that good. I mean, they were ups and downs at times with the TCU defense, but they were 94th in the country last year. Of course, that game against Georgia proved to us that they were not really good on defense in that game. So those are the stats comparisons between these two teams, between Colorado and TCU. Let's now go to the game summary. And this game will be at 12 o'clock Eastern Time on September the 2nd in week number 1. And the coverage for this game will be on Fox, and it is in Fort Worth, Texas, so home field advantage does play the favorite here for TCU. And TCU is also the favorite going into this game as of right now by 20.5 points, and the over and under is at 59.5. So they're kind of expecting a low-scoring, maybe a high-scoring type game, maybe middle of the pack, being a high-scoring game and also a defensive battle. But I could very well see this being a high-scoring game. Again, last year's game was 38-13. Of course, Colorado wasn't really that good. It kind of told the story that Colorado was not going to be a really good team at all, especially on the offensive side of the football. TCU, they just came in there and took care of business. I mean, they thought TCU would have a hard time going into that game, but I did pick, TCU to win that game last year. But again, this game is at 12 o'clock noon on September the 2nd. Eastern Time as well, and TCU ranked number 17 in the AP poll. I have TCU at number 20 in my top 25 preseason poll, so I mean there's a difference there. TCU right there in the middle of the pack, close to the top 15, but Colorado, you don't want to sleep on them in this game. I mean, they could potentially pull off an upset, but again, TCU is favored by at least 20.5 points going into this game. I guess just based off of, where the teams were last year. But again, this game's at 12 o'clock Eastern Time on September 2nd. It's a Fox game, and it's going to be a pretty good one here. Again, the over and under is at 59.5, and TCU is favored by 20.5 points, and they have home field advantage going into this game as well. Let's now look at keys to the game here for both of these teams. Keys to win the game here for both of these teams in week number 1. For Colorado, number 1 key is the offense has to step up. I mean, the offense has got to score some points. The offense has to really, be consistent, and also they got to make some really good plays on the offensive side of the football. That brings us to our next key. I mean, number 2 key is to make plays on offense and defense. I mean, they got to really put the pressure on the quarterback on the defensive side of the football, make explosive plays on the offense. I don't really see Colorado scoring a lot of points in this game, but I mean, you never know. I mean, this is just keys to win the game for both of these teams. Of course, Colorado was one of the worst offensive teams from last year, and then the defense was just worse as well. But Colorado, they have to make plays on offense and defensively if they're going to win this game. And then number 3, like I mentioned, they have to pressure the quarterback. They got to make the new quarterback for TCU. It's not Max Duggan anymore. They got to make him, feel a little bit uncomfortable going into this game. But again, the home crowd is behind TCU in this game. This is going to be a very tough place to play here for this Colorado team. And then you look at the TCU keys to win game here. The number 1 key is obviously be explosive on that offense. Of course, they were pretty explosive on that side of the football last year. We know TCU's offense is not going to be the same as it was last year, but again, I'm basing this off of the stats from last year. It's kind of just to be really, be explosive on that offensive side of the football. TCU's offense could be still one of the top offenses in the Big 12, but I think this is just going to be a different offense this year. Number 2 key is obviously the new quarterback has to step up. Obviously, they're going to have a new quarterback in this game. We don't really know who the quarterback is going to be just yet for TCU. And then the number 3 key is control the clock. Keep that Colorado defense on the field for as long as possible. Plus, they got the home field crowd behind them and everything. So, yeah, these are 3 keys for TCU, I think, to win this game against Colorado. It's not the same keys as they were last year in both of these games. Of course, I didn't do a prediction on this game from last year because it wasn't that big because TCU is not ranked. So, again, these are keys to win the game here for both of these teams. Let's now go into the prediction for both of these teams. So, Colorado and TCU will play on September the 2nd. Again, this is a rematch from last year. Again, the final score of the game last year was 38-13. TCU won on their home turf at Colorado. This year, TCU gets home field advantage. I kind of could see this game being a little bit closer than it was last year, but again, I'm just not really high on this Colorado team. I know a lot of people are picking Colorado to win this game, but I'm not just really high on Colorado. I don't think they're going to have an opportunity in this game like they did last year. Maybe the game is close in the first half, but I think second half maybe TCU can pull away. But like I said, I don't really think this game is going to be all that close. I think Colorado's just got a long way to go Plus, it's the first game of the season. It's just hard to tell where this Colorado team is going to be. You have to see them, if they're the real deal against this TCU team. But it's week number 1. Again, the teams, we don't really know how they're going to do until we get into week number 5. We'll have to see what the teams will look like and everything. So I think Colorado will score points in this game at least, but I don't think it will be enough. I think TCU wins this one here. My final score prediction is going to be 38-17. So I think TCU scores 38 points in this game. I think they almost cover the spread, or maybe they do cover the spread, of course, if my final score comes out that way. But again, 38-17 is my official prediction. I think Colorado does score points in this game, but I just don't think that offense is going to be quite enough to get past that TCU defense. So TCU is my official prediction here to beat Colorado here. Again, the final score for me is 38-17. Let me guys know what you think about this game. Who do you think is going to win it here, TCU or Colorado? Let me know down in the comments below. And stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports channel.